2004 was certainly a year to remember, especially if you're a Bionicle fan.
In the city of Metru Nui, you can discover how 6 new heroes confront the danger and protect the inhabitants from a mysterious force.
So, Metru Nui, City of Legends. Maybe you like it, maybe you don't like it. Personally, 2004 holds a special place in my heart. While 2003 was my introduction into Bionicle as a theme, 2004 was the year I really began to learn the story. And 20 years later, I thought it would be fun to look back on how my entry into reading the Bionicle story was kind of odd. To start off, let's go back a year to 2003. Where I got my first Bionicle set at Walmart. Tannock. Well, technically Anepu was my first Bionicle set, but I don't really have an idea of how I got this and when. At this time, I really did not know who Tannock was and just assumed maybe he is a good guy. I was too young to be browsing the internet, and I basically consumed zero LEGO media. It was a simpler time where I created my own stories with this red guy who turns into a ball. I'm not sure how I got this, but I had a short Bionicle comic with the Rakshi fighting the Toa Nuva. I did live somewhat close to a LEGO store back then, so maybe I got it there. The mini comic depicted the Rakshi beating up on the Toa Nuva, so at that time, I was under the impression that the good guys always won in stories, so this led me to get 4 Rakshi thinking, well, they were the good guys. I was not very smart back then. So, with the context of what I knew about Bionicle going into 2004, let us talk about the real big entry point. It all started in May of 2004, when I got my first LEGO magazine, and with that, my first Bionicle comic, Seeds of Doom. Now, getting this comic was a bit of a surprise to me. I knew I was getting the LEGO magazine, but I did not know I would be getting the comic as well. But I did enjoy the comic, and that was my introduction to the Toa Metru. Vakama was my favorite because he was the red one with the shooty disc, and Onawa was my least favorite because I really didn't like how the color brown looked on him. This probably means I was part of the reason why later Toa of Stone stopped being brown. So to those who didn't really like Orange Pohatu, I will take this moment to give my sincerest apologies. Sorry that you were unable to see the greatness in Orange Pohatu. Orange Pohatu is great. You are all wrong. And while I'm at it, I'm gonna say it. The 08 Toa Nuva color schemes were way better than... Alright, let's just move on before I say something that's gonna get me in a lot of hot water with the Bionicle community. So I proceeded to go to my local Walmart and get... Nokama. Well, that was the only Toa Metru that was still in stock when I got there. I still have her, but I'm missing some pieces that I need to get around replacing one day. I also got one of the Metru Tauren. No, not this piece of... I got this guy. Erie? Erie Otters? Erie? Yeah, Erie. I also got one of these disc packs where I broke the disc launcher by pulling the ends way apart. Why did I do that? But hey, I got this Metru Great Disc that I didn't find out about until like a couple of years ago. So the first comic got me hooked, and after that I was looking forward to every new comic I got from every new magazine every month. The comics I got in the later months were pretty cool, I thought, from the Vaki stuff to the Dark Hunters stuff. And then there was the last comic of the year, which I made some funny observations throughout. First of all, I called Makuda's Shadow Hand the barbecue sauce hand. I thought Nidiki had web power suddenly, not realizing that this was probably a teaser for 2005. And then there was this Likan appearance, who I kept wondering, why haven't they made a set of this guy? No, not that. That guy is gold and red. This guy's just gray. I did not read the name of the set, and I was dumb back then. I also wanted a set of this Rahi, and I was surprised they never made a set of this Rahi. The comics served their purpose of giving me a good entry point into the world, though at this point, it all still felt small to me. But what comes next is the real breakout moment. The movie was being constantly advertised in the comics, so of course I watched it back then. The character designs threw me off. I was able to figure out who was who from the comics, but the big one that threw me off was Doom. Not that Doom. Yes, that Doom.
Perhaps you are using inferior discs.
As for the story, it gave me a chance to see the Toa Metru's origins, and adventures that led them to acquiring the Mask of Time, as well as other fun things like Vakama using the cloak and dagger, Anawa still giving me bad vibes,
Some stranger than others.
Your negativity pollutes this sanctuary, Builder.
and well, Matau being, well, Matau, and ultimately watching the Toa freeze Makuta in something. It was a fun adventure with an ending setting up for future adventures on a brand new island to explore for the Toa Metru moving forwards. I am so ready to see where they go next as these brand new Toa for years to come. I guess they gotta free the Matoran first. What is happening to Vakama? Why is he old now? Wait. Why are they all becoming old now? They just became Toa. What is going on? They gave that new guy Likan's old mask. Is this new character gonna be a Toa one day? But what about the Toa Metru? Why are they old now?
This is the way of the Bionicle.
At the start of this video, I talked about how my entry point into the Bionicle story was kind of odd, and the ending to Bionicle 2 was a rude awakening. A rude awakening to the fact this was all a flashback. But you might be wondering, you knew about Bionicle in 2003. I did, but not the story. Keep in mind the exact comic I started at. I didn't have the context of the two previous comics detailing that this was all a flashback. I thought the story was just one-off stories for the longest of times. What about the fact Vakama was narrating in the past tense the whole time? That flew over my head because my brain was too focused on the visuals. Also, I didn't really realize that was Vakama doing the narrating at the start. It did not help that the aesthetics of Metru Nui were very futuristic compared to the limited knowledge I had of the previous 2 years of a very not futuristic world. I thought the jump from 2003 to 2004 was a time skip into the distant future, where the characters of the first 3 years were long gone, and now we have a new generation of heroes. So now in the timeline, we're in late 2004, and I have slightly more internet access. So I go to www.bionicle.com, and I begin to learn a bit of the story for the first 3 years. And everything I thought I knew about Bionicle lore, unsurprisingly, got flipped upside down. The main ways I was able to learn the story were through the short videos made summarizing the first 3 years of the story. It helped give me a rough breakdown of what I missed. MetruNui online game 2, and more specifically, just roaming around in Gakoro in Monog 2 because I didn't bother playing the Cola games. But the game allowed me to better understand the depth of the world and how each Matoran had their own story and thing going. It really gave an extra level of aliveness to the world that I didn't really feel before. And of course, I watched Mask of Light, which I thought was pretty cool. I would also eventually get one of the first Bionicle novels, which was being sold at a book fair at my school for like $1. I almost got the Dark Hunters book a few years later, but apparently that was for the older kids and not for me at the time. And with that, I was somewhat up to speed by the end of 2005, just in time for the Ignition trilogy to begin. A lot of people got into Bionicle's story at different points. Whether it be in early 2001, during the Ignition trilogy, during the Gotorian saga, or maybe like me during the Metru Nui saga. And now that it has been 20 years since my first real interaction with the story, It was interesting to look back on how I first got in at an odd time where I was led to believe the Toa Metru were a modern-day Toa team, and I have always wondered if other people who got into 2004 had a similar misdirection that I did, or maybe I was just dumb back then. Either way now, I went from a misguided understanding of Bionicle lore to knowing a little too much about the lore. And while 2004 wasn't my favorite year, that goes to 2008 and the Adaptive Armor Toa Nuva, which were the best Toa we ever got, the Metru Nui saga is still a special place for me because that is where it all truly began, from a story investment view. It kinda shows that even after the golden years, the story was able to evolve and bring in new people along the wild ride.
Stop this new faceless opponent. Bionicle, a mystery to be revealed. Each set sold separately.